A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Right now we have an update with where the grace of God is intersecting in the space of domestic and family violence. In the federal government's recent decision to end family and domestic violence in Australia in one generation. What are they planning? Will such plans work in the real world? And where is God in the midst of this difficult and often hard to navigate space? We're joined right now by Matt Boulton from Circuit Breaker to discuss these issues and an upcoming Circuit Breaker event happening in Adelaide. Welcome to 2020, Matt Boulton.
Thanks very much, Tosh. Good to be back again.
It's great to have you on with us, mate. And what can you share with us around this government's decision to mystically figure out how to end domestic violence in Australia in a generation?
Well, it's really well intended, Tosh. Of course, this is a absolute epidemic in our country at the moment, and everybody wants to solve it.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer that the local church should not wait for the government to fix domestic violence. There's plenty that churches can do, and there's actually plenty that churches are doing.
And in regard to the lay of the land in Australia right now, what can you share with us about where this scene of domestic and family violence is?
Well, it's pretty shocking when you look at the statistics, when you understand that police are called to a domestic violence incident in our country every 2 minutes. That
Wow.
one in 4 women sometime in their life in Australia will be a victim of domestic and family violence. And that's not just cold numbers. That's 1 in 4 of our wives, 1 in 4 of our daughters, 1 in 4 of our mothers, our next door neighbours, our work colleagues. So it gets pretty real when you think that it would be mathematically impossible that these people weren't in our lives right now, whether we know it or not.
Whether we know it or not. And Matt, when you're sharing just now about that statistic and marrying that to the government's decision, the recent statement that they want to end it in Australia, well-intentioned, in a generation, ending it in a generation, do you see that as being a real possible way of scientifically figuring out, or do you think there is any other way other than the church?
Anything's possible, and I certainly think that what we need is a whole of community response.
Yeah.
We certainly don't need we do need more ambulances at the bottom of the cliff, but we've got to do something better than just response, just the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. Unfortunately, the report where that promise was made to end domestic violence in a single generation, I didn't see a lot of substance there in the place of prevention. There was a lot there about response.
Right.
But of course, unless we're influencing the ones doing domestic violence, then all we can really hope for is to move the problem around. Despite governments, wanting to fund this problem away or legislate this problem away, there's only one group of people really that can bring an end to this, and that's the abusers themselves. So unless we're engaging with them in some kind of process of change, then really we're kidding ourselves that we're ever going to get on top of this problem.
And so you were saying there in the government's proposal, there wasn't much in the way of substance toward prevention. It was more about response. As an expert in this field, Matt, and leading Circuit Breaker, and as I understand it, you've got a footprint in most of the states across Australia right now. How do you see the ability to get into giving that ounce of prevention instead of the pound of cure?
Well, I think what I said before was unless we're engaging the ones doing the violence, we're not really preventing. In fact, before they start abusing would be a good time to engage with them. But what does engagement look like? And that's
my next question.
Yeah, and that's the key, because a lot of the approaches, and particularly the one in this report, just seem to be more of the same. Not too much substance in the way of addressing issues that are issues for abusers themselves. So there's a lot of talking down, even in some of the major domestic violence programs. We hear from people that have been through that, and they'll tell us things like, well, they just talk down to me, they shoot me down in flames, whatever I say. And there's this idea that perhaps we can bully the bullies out of bullying, or perhaps that shame might actually, if we can shame people out. But what the research is showing these days, and what we've been a little surprised to find, is that shame is actually one of the biggest drivers of domestic violence.
Right.
No surprise really when you think that when we're using shame, we're really just helping the devil to do his best work.
The idea of bullying the bullies out of bullying seems to be what you saw in at least the policy, which was written a little while ago, in giving the concept of prevention and equipping the abuser or the potential abuser before he abuses. I mean, do we have to take a whole of society approach into speaking to generations, messaging to the generation that's here right now?
Well, the wonderful thing that we're finding is just by speaking to adults and just by helping them to get the help that they're asking for, they're passing those tools on to their kids.
That's amazing.
Our course is only a 10-week course, but on the final night, if I can get to a course that's graduating, I will, and I hear the stories. And I continue to hear parents. We had a lady in Logan who said that in the 9 weeks that she had been in the course so far, she couldn't believe it. Her son hasn't been called to the principal's office once.
Wow.
So, I mean, for that to be a shock is interesting and insightful, but we just continue to hear that time after time. That changed behaviours in parents has a generational impact, and we'll never know the multitude of people that can follow one person that decides to make decisions to be a better version of themselves.
And so when that stress is being brought out of the parental relationship, it's not flowing into the child's world, and they're not taking it into school, taking it into sports clubs, taking it into the community. Is that right? That's
right. And one of the things we're not talking about as a community is we know that we've got a massive youth crime problem at the moment, but a lot of people are not connecting that to these kids that don't want to be at home because of the domestic violence epidemic, and so they're out in the streets and forming gangs, and so we really have a potential to impact that as well. If we can get on top of domestic violence, we actually get on top of 75% of our homelessness problem as well.
So, Matt, you're blowing my mind here, Matt.
I know, it's just everywhere you look. It's the reason why our police are overwhelmed and overworked. It's the reason we're building more prisons, because roughly 75 to 80% of our prison populations are there on domestic violence matters. It's everywhere, and it's the locus of what we need to get on top of.
And Matt, through your circuit breaker course, we understand that you've got one coming up in Adelaide over the weekend. Is that correct?
There's actually circuit breaker courses all through the year. Then they're offered locally by our providers in different states. But what we're doing this Saturday in Adelaide, in Mount Barker, is we're doing what we call our Tools for Preventing Domestic Violence Training Day. And that's where we train facilitators to deliver our program. We don't just parachute into town and deliver our programs. We raise up local communities, community groups. Churches are overwhelmingly overrepresented in what we do. It's a really good fit for churches because we're the ones usually that know how to love unlovely people, love the sinner, hate the sin. We're the ones who believe in redemption. We believe these people can change.
Have the mind for transformation in church, don't we?
That's it, and we've got these wonderful, caring communities that can wrap around somebody that's, making some tough decisions in their life. So we're training those people. We're welcoming clergy, but we're also welcoming volunteers from churches. Come and be trained. It's free. You'll even get a free, morning tea. And,
very good.
And we'll love to, and people come as a PD as well, just for professional development. Frontline workers are welcome as well.
It's amazing. Now, Matt, you're not just a theoretician. We've got about 4 or 5 minutes left in this conversation today. But just to bring our Vision family into the picture of where Circuit Breaker came from, how did this whole thing begin?
Well, it came from people approaching me when I was a pastor in a church and then trained as a counsellor because there were so many people coming to me with their stories. But the reason they were opening up to me was because I was always open about my story, that I had been an abuser in my marriage, early in my marriage, and it cost me a lot to really get out of denial. I had to come home to an empty house and a note from my wife saying that she'd left, that I was no longer safe to live with. And that started a 10-month separation, which was just walking through the valley of the shadow of death. It was the worst thing, but it really made me wake up and get help. And really getting those tools that I've been looking for all my life. There's a lot of abusers out there that hate themselves for what they're doing. I was one of those guys. but it's actually, well, what can I do? I don't have the tools I need to manage myself and to manage conflict. So when I got that, hand on heart, I can say for the next 30 years until now, I've never been tempted to go back and use those old tools that I was using in my marriage. And I saw a miracle. Miraculously we got back together, and we've had a wonderful marriage ever since.
Praise God, Matt. You're bringing this story of redemption to life in real time, and what God has done for you, thank God you're able to pass on to others. Matt Boulton, thank you for joining us here today in Conversation on 2020.
My pleasure, Tosh. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.